Hi, I'm Meg. Welcome to Change Becomes You, the space where we explore the true power behind lasting change, your unconscious mind, the supercomputer within you, the part of you that creates healing, abundance, safety, clarity, and deeply meaningful relationships, often before your conscious mind even catches up. When I learned how to work with my unconscious mind instead of against it, everything changed. I moved from contract work as an organizer into building a multi-six-figure business from the ground up, guided not by force or hustle, but by alignment, intuition, and inner authority. Here's what I want you to know. You already have everything you need inside you. Nothing is missing. You don't need to become someone else. You need to understand how you're designed to operate. This podcast is your invitation to remember that. Let's begin. Welcome back to Change Becomes You. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to spend this time with me today. Thank you. And I want to begin with a question. Have you ever noticed that sometimes life is actually going well, and somehow you feel more anxious instead of less? Maybe it's a situation like the medical tests come back clear, your business is finally gaining momentum, your children are doing well, or you've started sleeping better. Maybe your relationship is starting to feel steadier than it's been in a while. And then, without even realizing it, you look for what you've missed. You kind of waiting for the email, the phone call, the diagnosis, the unexpected bill, the client who leaves, the conversation that changes everything. You don't even want to think those things, but they arrive anyway, kind of quietly and automatically, almost like your nervous system whispers, "Don't relax yet, not yet." I actually see this almost weekly, every single week with the female clients that I work with. These are brilliant women. Right? These are loving women. These are successful women, women who have spent years doing personal work. And yet, the moment life begins to feel lighter, something inside them begins preparing for it to disappear. So if you've ever experienced that, I want you to really hear this. Nothing's gone wrong. Your nervous system is simply doing exactly what it learned to do. Because the question really isn't, what's wrong with me? That's what the conscious mind wants to ask. And that's what I hear most of the time in my practice. What's wrong with me? I feel like something is wrong with me. That's not the question. The question is, what did my nervous system learn was necessary for me to survive? Because somewhere in your life, excitement may have followed by disappointment. Calm may have been interrupted by crisis. Joy may have been very short-lived. Love may have become loss. Success may have attracted criticism or drama or too much attention. So your subconscious mind did something incredibly intelligent. It stopped trusting good moments. Not because it wanted to steal your happiness, but because it believed that if it stayed alert, maybe, just maybe, it could protect you from being blindsided again. So today, we're going to gently start to teach it something entirely new. There's a woman that I worked with, some time ago, who said something to me that I won't forget anytime soon. And she was kind of smiling. She was a little bit shy, maybe a little bit embarrassed as she said this, but she was telling me about this wonderful week she'd just had, that her business had brought in some new clients, several actually new clients, that her partner had surprised her with dinner reservations for no reason, not a birthday, not an anniversary, just just dinner reasons, just dinner reservations. She told me that her health had been really stable. And for the first time in years, she said, like, I actually felt happy. And then she looked down, kind of ashamed or embarrassed. And she said, but honestly, Meg, I spent the whole weekend wondering what was about to go wrong. Not because anything had gone wrong. She wasn't dealing with anything that she was aware of. Nothing had gone wrong. But she simply couldn't enjoy what was happening because somewhere deep inside of her, she was already rehearsing how she would survive losing it or how she would have to manage it when it happened. So maybe you've done that too. Perhaps not consciously. Perhaps you wouldn't even describe it that way. Maybe you've noticed yourself thinking things like, or automatically responding to, that's a better way to put it, automatically responding to something positive with, this is almost too good. Let's not get our hopes up. We'll see how long this lasts. I'm not going to celebrate this just yet. And those thoughts can become ordinary and regular and on repeat, practical, right? They might seem almost responsible, but in truth, they're actually revealing something so much deeper. They're revealing the language of a nervous system that has learned certainty is safer than surprise, even if certainty is choosing fear. And I want to explain why this happens, because understanding can begin to change everything. Your subconscious mind has one primary responsibility. Not happiness, not confidence, not success, safety. Every experience you've ever had has quietly answered one question. What do I need to expect in order to stay safe? So if your childhood taught you that calm could suddenly become chaos, your subconscious mind remembers. If every celebration was followed by criticism, your subconscious mind remembers. If every time you relaxed, someone disappointed you, your subconscious remembers. If illness arrived without any warning, your subconscious remembers. If relationships changed overnight, your subconscious mind remembers. It stores all of those experiences, not as stories, but as warnings, as predictions. They get stored as programming, as memories. And then your nervous system is constantly scanning and associating. It's looking for any signs of that so that it can keep you safe from that. So it stores it as a warning, and then it watches for it like a prediction. And predictions become physiology. So your shoulders start to tighten before your mind even knows why. And your breathing becomes shallower, and your thoughts are scanning, right? Your mind begins scanning, your attention narrows, and your body starts preparing for something that isn't actually even happening. Not because your subconscious is stuck in the past, because it's trying to prevent the future from hurting as much as the past did. And that, if you heard that, is such a life-changing, nuanced understanding. This is why positive thinking rarely changes anything. You can't convince a body that feels unsafe to suddenly feel safe simply because you've repeated an affirmation, right? The subconscious isn't asking, what do I believe? It's asking, what have I experienced, right? What am I anticipating next? And until new experiences begin teaching it something different, it will continue choosing familiarity over freedom, even when familiarity hurts. And one of the most compassionate things I've ever learned about the nervous system is that it doesn't confuse pain with safety. It confuses familiarity with safety. And I want you to really hear that again in your heart, because that single understanding changes how we begin healing. It explains why someone can leave a toxic relationship and feel anxious in a healthy one. It explains why someone can finally earn more money, yet suddenly begin fearing losing it. Why a woman can receive wonderful medical news and still find herself checking her body for symptoms every day. Why a thriving business can somehow create more anxiety than a struggling one. Not because the good things feel dangerous, but because it feels unfamiliar. And the subconscious will almost always choose a familiar experience until it's lovingly shown again and again and again that something new is safe enough to stay. This is where I think we have misunderstood healing. We often imagine that healing means becoming fearless. It doesn't, in my opinion. In my experience, healing is the gradual process of teaching your body that it no longer has to interrupt joy in order to protect you. That it no longer has to tighten every time something beautiful arrives. That it no longer has to whisper, like, be careful, every time your heart begins opening. Because one day, without even noticing, you'll laugh. And you'll stay laughing. You'll receive good news, and instead of immediately looking for the catch, you'll smile. Not because you've become naive, not because life no longer contains uncertainty, but because your nervous system has finally learned something really important and quite extraordinary, that this moment is allowed to be enough. So I want to tell you something I often say to women sitting across from me in my practice, just like this. I don't think your nervous system is afraid of joy. I think it's afraid of losing it. There's a difference. One is about happiness, the other is about grief. And most women I work with have become incredibly good at surviving disappointment. They know how to keep going, how to adapt, how to rebuild, how to carry on. In fact, if I asked you to tell me about the hardest season of your life, you probably could pretty easily, right? Thoughts come to mind. You could tell me where you found your strength. But if I asked you another question, what does it feel like to simply receive something beautiful without waiting for it to disappear? Many women would become very quiet. Because no one has ever taught us that. We've been taught to be grateful. We've been taught to be resilient. We've been taught to work hard. We've been taught to prepare for worst case scenarios. But very few of us were taught how to let goodness stay. And sometimes I imagine the subconscious like this devoted guardian standing at the entrance to your heart. And its job has never been to decide whether life is beautiful. Its job has simply been to decide, what should I let in? And for years, that guardian has become incredibly skilled at recognizing danger, disappointment, criticism, loss, rejection. It learned those patterns so well. But here's the part that fascinates me. If that guardian has spent years scanning for danger, it has had very little opportunity to recognize safety. Imagine spending decades studying one language, and then suddenly someone begins speaking another language. You wouldn't be wrong for not understanding it immediately, right? You'd simply need time. You'd need to practice the new language. You'd need gentleness as you learned. You'd need more exposure to it. And I think that's exactly what happens with joy. Your body isn't rejecting it. It's trying to translate it slowly, carefully, trying to decide, is this one safe? And one of the simplest practices that I sometimes invite my clients into has nothing to do with affirmations. Instead, I ask them to pause during an ordinary, beautiful moment. Right? Perhaps it's the warmth of the morning sun coming through the kitchen window, or the sound of rain while they're curled up with a cup of tea, or imagining before they get out of bed what that tea is going to taste like in their hands. pausing for that extra moment when they hear their child laughing in another room, being present, really noticing their dog resting peacefully at their feet, sleeping beside them, maybe on the sofa. Maybe a client sending them a beautiful, kind email. Maybe a walk where just for a few minutes their shoulders soften and drop down. And I ask them to stay there just 10 seconds longer. Just to pause and to breathe in and out and become aware. Not to make the feeling bigger, not to force happiness, simply to remain. Because something starts happening if we do this. Your nervous system starts gathering new evidence. An evidence that says, I didn't have to leave this moment. I didn't have to prepare. I didn't have to tighten. I stayed. And I was safe. 10 seconds might not sound like much, but the subconscious measures life very differently than we do. It remembers repetition, our gentleness. In one gentle moment, repeated often enough, can begin rewriting years of expectation. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love hypnosis so deeply. People often think hypnosis is about changing thoughts. To me, it isn't. It's about creating new experiences. It's about identity shifting. Because the subconscious doesn't argue with lived experience, it learns from it. Every time a woman allows herself to breathe instead of brace, she teaches her subconscious something. Every time she celebrates a win without apologizing for it, she teaches her subconscious something. I constantly am asking my clients when something happens, did you celebrate that win? No matter how small it was, did you celebrate that win? You are training your nervous system because it is so easy for us to bypass it. Like, no, I really didn't. I thought, oh, that was nice. And I move on. So every time you celebrate a win without apologizing for it or dimming it down or making it small and quick and moving on, you are teaching your subconscious something. Every time you receive help, instead of insisting you can do everything yourself, you are teaching your subconscious something. Every time a woman laughs without feeling guilty, allows herself to fully be seen. Every time a woman rests without having to earn it or feel peaceful without immediately becoming suspicious, like, what am I missing? What am I not doing? I don't have time. You're teaching your subconscious something, little by little by little. And then those inner predictions from the earlier programming can start to change. Not because someone convinced her, but because her own life becomes the evidence. And there's something else I want you to think about. Sometimes women will tell me, I don't want to get my hopes up. Like, that feels really uncomfortable. It feels uneasy to me, uncertain to me. Right? And I understand why. Hope can feel vulnerable. Hope can feel very vulnerable. If you've been disappointed enough times, hope itself can begin feeling like a risk. But what if hope isn't a promise that nothing difficult will ever happen again? What if hope is simply the quiet confidence that no matter what life brings, you no longer have to abandon yourself? That changes everything. Because suddenly now your safety is no longer dependent on controlling every outcome. Your safety lives somewhere much deeper inside of you. It lives in the relationship you've begun creating with yourself, with your body, with your subconscious, with the quiet knowing and the divine intelligence within you that says, I know how to come back home to myself now. And when a woman discovers that, she doesn't stop living carefully. She simply stops living fearfully. And if you're willing here, I'd like to take you through a little bit of an imagery exercise that's just come to mind. If you're willing here, just let your eyes gently close for a moment. I want to leave you with a picture. Just take a nice deep breath in. Slow exhale out. And I want you to imagine or sense or feel yourself walking through a beautiful garden. You're not rushing. You're not looking over your shoulder. You're not wondering whether someone is about to tell you to leave. You're just simply walking. And you notice the warmth of the sun on your skin. You hear birds somewhere in the distance. A gentle breeze moves through the trees. And without thinking, you just pause to smell a flower. You smile, not because something extraordinary has happened, but because you've allowed yourself to be completely present in an ordinary, beautiful moment. Now imagine someone walking beside you. Someone who has spent years expecting danger. She notices the same flowers, but she isn't really seeing them. She's watching the sky. She's listening for footsteps. She's wondering if she's forgotten something. She's planning what she'll do if it starts raining. Neither woman is in a different garden. They're standing in exactly the same place. The difference isn't the world around them. The difference is what their nervous system has learned to expect. And here's the amazing part. The woman standing beside you isn't destined to stay that way forever. Because every peaceful moment, every joyful experience, every safe relationship, every quiet morning, every deep breath is gently introducing her nervous system to another possibility, one experience at a time. Healing rarely happens because of one extraordinary breakthrough. More often it happens because of hundreds of tiny moments that quietly teach the body, this is different now. And you can just come back into the room and open your eyes whenever you feel comfortable. I often think about the women I first meet, and many arrive believing they have anxiety, or they're overthinking, or they have perfectionism, or they're people pleasers. And while those experiences are all very real, I don't ever see them as the whole story. Because underneath all of them is often a woman who simply hasn't yet learned that life no longer requires her to brace every moment of every day. That she's not broken. She's been brilliantly protective. And once her subconscious realizes protection is no longer the only way to survive, something really extraordinary begins to happen. She doesn't become a different woman. She becomes more fully herself. She can laugh more easily, sleep more deeply, trust her own decisions. She stops rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet. She can become more present and notice beauty she used to walk right past. And she starts to say yes without immediately searching for reasons why it won't work. She allows herself to dream again, not because life suddenly became certain, but because she finally understands certainty was never what she was searching for. She was searching for safety. And now she's learning that safety can live inside of her. So the next time you notice yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, I don't want you to criticize yourself. I don't want you to force yourself to think positively. Instead, just take a moment. Just pause. See if you can smile, change your state, and just quietly say to yourself, thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me. Because that's what your nervous system has been doing all along. And then just take a slow breath and look around the room and notice where you are and notice what's actually true. Right? Maybe the coffee really does taste good. Maybe the evening really is peaceful. Maybe your child really is laughing. Maybe your business really is growing. Maybe today is simply a beautiful day, no matter the weather. And maybe just for these next few moments, nothing bad is coming. And you let your body experience that. Not because you're pretending tomorrow doesn't exist, but because today deserves to be lived. Healing isn't learning how to predict the future more accurately. Healing is discovering that you no longer need to. Because the strongest version of you was never the woman who always saw danger first. The strongest version of you is the woman who trusts herself enough to meet life, whatever it brings. And that's a very different way to live. The time that we have between here and whenever we leave really matters. The older we get, the more important it becomes. And presence becomes a learned way of life that I can experience and celebrate all the joys, and I can walk through the challenges and know that I'm okay. Know that I'll always be okay. And that's a very, very different way to live. Thank you for spending this time with me today. As always, be gentle with yourself. Your nervous system has been carrying a tremendous responsibility for a very long time, and it deserves your compassion, not your criticism. I love this time together. I hope you'll join me again next month for another episode. Be sure to tune in and follow me on my socials. I have got so much more coming. I'm going to be doing some live tea with Megs starting in August. And until then, notice the beautiful moments. See if you can stay with them just a little bit longer. Because every one of these moments is quietly teaching your subconscious mind that life has changed. And so have you. Thank you for being here. And until next time, keep becoming.